Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead with our class, Organon of Medicine. Today we are going to study about Aphorism 26. So far, we completed day before yesterday, Aphorism number 25, in which we learned that all the experiments and experience shows that it is like a oracle. This experimentation and experience is like an oracle, is like a godly words. It's like a prediction. It's the highest wisdom for attaining the knowledge and experience in respect of the therapeutic law. And it is seen with these experiments and experience that once you are giving a medicine which is known by its effects on the healthy, having symptoms similar, most similar with the totality of the symptoms of the natural disease, when given in a proper dose, it completely removes readily and permanently, hence cure takes place. This we learnt in Aphorism 25 day before yesterday. Today we are going to go ahead with Aphorism 26. This aphorism seems to be the smaller one, but then it has got some 7 examples to justify this homeopathic law of nature, and they are given in the footnote of it. Sometime in that there are certain confusions. Now we need to understand all the examples given in the footnote and also the whole aphorism. So let us just start with the aphorism 26. The aphorism 26 says, this depends on the following homeopathic law of nature, which was sometimes indeed vaguely surmised, but not hitherto fully recognized, and to which is due every real cure that has ever taken place. And when says, whatever I spoke in Aphorism 25, that having this similarity, disease cures, why? On what basis the cure takes place? On what basis it depends on? In this Aphorism 26, Henman is telling us the basis. He says, following homeopathic law of nature, this result, what we see, cure, is by is because of following, is because of towing the line of, is because of applying homeopathic law of nature. This law, this therapeutic law, this homeopathic therapeutic law, it was in the earlier times, 2500 years, sometimes vaguely surmised. You understand vaguely, but surmise means guess. You just thought of. There is something like similia. There is something like iron cuts iron. People were not sure, but then they were very hazily able to guess. Vaguely surmises, very hazily guessing that there is something which is similia, which is responsible for this. And till Hahnemann's time, he says, not hitherto, even up to now. Hitherto means up to now. and not even up to now well recognized. That it is not really recognized that so far in any of the disease, whatever the cure has taken place is only and only because of this homeopathic law of nature. Since we all have gone through author's preface, author's introduction, and especially in author's introduction, Henneman explained so deeply and so extensively about the cure taking place only and only because of the, even if accidentally applied, law of similia. Even physician does not know that he is following the homeopathic law of nature. Even then, patient gets cured because it is natural. Nature's law means it is natural. It happens so. Like when somebody is asking from where the sun rises and sets. So it is not to be proved in the laboratory. It is well known that it rises from the east and sets in the west. It's natural. Similarly, the law of similia is natural. So let us read it once again. This depends on what, about what he is talking. He is talking all the result we are seeing in the cases of the dynamic diseases where you apply the medicine on the basis of law of similia gets cured, which is very well explained in the Aphorism 25. And this phenomena of Aphorism 25 taking place depends on following homeopathic law of nature. It is because of homeopathic law of nature, which though known very vaguely, but it is only and only responsible for whatever the cures taken place in the past. This is what he wanted to say here. Now, in the next para of this, he writes a maxim, he writes a principle, nature's law, in italics. What he says, we all know that every one of us were remembering it before every Viva class of the organ. What is this? A weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one if the later, in bracket, while is differ in kind, is very similar to the former in its manifestation, having a footnote. So I would just request every one of you to mark three important words in this italics. That is the main crux of this italic principle given. One, stronger one. First you mark stronger one. Second, in the bracket, differing in kind. And third, similar. So according to this, Henman says for curing you need three things. One, it should be similar. Second, it should be stronger. And third, it must be different in kind. Anything which are similar but different in kind, either one which is stronger will extinguish the weaker. This is the law. Let us take certain examples. Like certain examples, many examples, some 7 examples here given in the footnote, but then let us first understand this. Suppose we have seen in our cases, in many of the cases of typhoid, if you give when indicated. Why? Because Bacteria in its proving produces typhoid-like phenomena. It is not producing typhoid. It is producing typhoid-like phenomena. And patient who is suffering with natural typhoid disease, the symptoms of the natural typhoid disease a patient is suffering, and the symptoms of the bacteria in a prover, they are similar kind of phenomena, but you see the origin is different. And when you apply bacteria to this patient, he gets cured because bacteria situation is bacteria production of typhoid like state is always stronger than the natural one. Why medicinal things are stronger, we will study later. Just giving you an example. Similarly, I gave you this example earlier also. If you see the vaccination, the Janus vaccination for smallpox, that is the one very classical example in the vaccination which followed all these 3 points. One, the cowpox is a stronger than smallpox. Secondly, both are similar, not same, both are similar. And origin of both are different. So you need three things to cure: similar, stronger, different in kind. This is the whole understanding of this italic sentence. Let us read it once again. A weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one if the later, while is differing in kind, is very similar to the former in its manifestations. He has illustrated them, this law, some 7 examples in the footnote. Let us take one by one each example. This is footnote 2. Thus are cured both physical affections and moral maladies. He says this law is not just for either kind of diseases, only physical diseases, it is going to help, only mental diseases, it is going to help. No, thus. Thus is a concluding word. Thus means that this is the conclusion what I am going to say. Thus, if you apply medicine like this, it is curing both physical and mental diseases both. And of course, we all have got certain good experience on both kind of diseases. One very good example in the WhatsApp group uh, by video sent by Dr. Sushil, uh, who is a regular visitor in this time. So that's a very good example he showed. Uh, by video, he showed that how very good cure taken place. It is the law of similia. So thus are cured both physical affections and moral maladies. Now he starts with the example, illustration of this law of similia. How is it that in the early dawn, the brilliant Jupiter vanishes from the gaze of the beholder? By a stronger, very similar power acting on his optic nerve, the brightness of approaching day. Like nowadays, we are not very much familiar with this kind of basic astronomy. We just don't know even a very small thing because we all generally live in a cities which are full of pollution, unable to see the stars and all those things, and that is nowadays not a habit. Hence, we do not know exactly that what kind of star or what kind of thing we are able to see, and like this. Like if you try to see if that sky is clear, if that pollution veil is not there, we see so many stars, and along with the star, if we are really trained to see, we can see certain planets also. Like Jupiter, he is talking here. This Jupiter planet is generally seen longest, and by the day is breaking, the sun is rising, we could see. But then suddenly this Jupiter, even rest of the other stars, they vanishes. So do they go anywhere? No, they do not go anywhere. It is the effect of the sunlight, which is much brighter than rest of the stars and the light of this Jupiter planet, that our optic nerve is unable to see these stars, even this planet Jupiter, because the stronger light does not allow the weaker light to be experienced. Right? This is one very good example we could see. We, we can just see that if we are in a sunlight and if we try to lit one candle, this candle light does not have any effect. We can try this. So this is the one very simple example. Every one of us are aware about it. Then comes now suddenly you see there is an exclamation when he is finishing the sentence. The brightness of the approaching day, exclamation. It's a sign of surprise how it is gone. Then there is a sudden M dash. There is a dash coming, and similarly another dash will be coming. So it is this dash says this dash has got only one importance, that you apply the dash when you suddenly change an idea. So when Hahnemann is writing this as if he's talking to us, and while talking to us, giving the examples to illustrate this homeopathic law of nature, he gave an example related to the light, Jupiter and sun and everything. He suddenly writes one dash. That means he's suddenly changing the example altogether different. Altogether different examples are coming. What are those examples? In situations replete with repeated orders, wherewith is it usual to soothe effectually the offended olfactory nerves. He answers here, he raised a question. In situations replete with fetid orders, wherewith is it usual to soothe effectually the offended olfactory nerves? Question mark. He answers with snuff that affects the sense of smell in a similar but stronger manner. Like, for example, you encounter with a very bad smell. and it is so much so that you are not really able to get rid of this smell now, though the source is away. What to do? It is so bad a smell that you're puking and you're in a lot of trouble with that bad smell. It's not going away, though the source is already removed. You're away from that source. So you cannot ask somebody to have pastry and it will be all right. You cannot ask somebody to have a very cold drink or some very hot drink. This sensation will go away. No, because altogether a different sense, olfaction sense and taste sense, both are altogether different. Either one cannot cure the affections. So here you need rather some much more stronger kind of smell. That is a smell of snuff. You understand snuff? It is a smelling bottle. It is a ammonium carb. If those who are really having some village background, they will be able to understand that you will find so many of the old people. They used to just snuff something. They were having one bottle and they were snuffing. This snuff, this ammonium carb is such a strongest smell. It will suddenly extinguish, remove the previous smell away, and you will get rid of that very fetid bad smell. But then you can do something in that arena. You cannot, as I told you, give somebody a very good pastry and this bad smell will go away. No, it will not go away. That's what next line Hahnemann says. So he says, in situation replete with fitted orders, wherewith is it usual to soothe effectually the offended olfactory nerves with snuff that affects the sense of smell in a similar but stronger manner! Exclamation. No music, no sugared cake, which act on nerves of the other senses, can cure this olfactory disgust. Music or means the sense of the ear. If you try to soothe the sense of hearing and sense of taste, it will not really cure the disgust of the sense of olfaction. That's what he's saying. Means it is always specific. Then next example, how does the soldier cunningly stifle the piteous cries of him who runs the gauntlet from the ears of a compassionate bystanders, and he's answering this question by the shrill notes of fife commingled with the roll of noisy drum. Say example, which is you can say an example from the uh, army areas, army cantonments. You know, whenever some soldier committed a mistake, they are subject to certain kind of punishments. So earlier, those days, punishment were quite harsh. In this punishment, what they were doing, one soldier who is supposed to be punished, he has to run through a gauntlet. What is gauntlet? It may be one kind of passage, or you created an artificial passage that in the two rows the army personnel are standing and they're wearing some kind of harming steel gloves which is having a pointed nails and all, and they are just joining like this. Somebody cannot pass from this, somebody cannot pass from this, and until and unless you are injured with it. So any sharp pointed things which is there together like this, and a person who is to be punished passing through this, getting injured with this pointed nails or rods or something. It is a gauntlet. When a person who is under this punishment running through this and having that injury, what is going to do that soldier who is under this punishment? He will shout. He will shout in a very shrill sound, very high pitched sound. चीख मारेगा. And this shrill sound when he is passing through, then so many those who are seeing how he's been punished, they may get sympathized, they may get hurt why such kind of punishment is given and all that. So what they want, these bystanders, this other soldiers standing around, they should not feel all this. For that purpose, they are using two things: fife and drums. What is fife? You must have seen, all have seen this period serials where when war is going to take place, they used to use one very long piped instrument which is creating a very high pitched sound. So that very high pitched sound is almost similar like that sharp shrill of this punishing soldier. So that is now what is happening, it is overlapping on that sound, and the bystanders, they are unable to listen in. And if any other noise which is not that high pitched, rather low pitched sound, in that, what is going to happen? They are using drums. And because of the drum and the fife, any kind of high pitched sound and low pitched sound is completely overlapped by these two instruments, and bystanders are not getting compassionate about him, and that soldier is passing through that punishment. And Hahnemann has just given this example, though it is not, I think, anywhere present, it's not really common, but it is historical interest that these kind of inhuman behaviors were there. And here we are not to focus on this inhumanity and all, but here we are to see that how very smartly those people, those who were maybe very inhuman but well aware about the homeopathic law of nature, if they are going to use this kind of fife and the drum, the other soldiers standing by, they will not be affected. They will be only affected that we should not pass through, so that we should not make certain mistakes, so that we will not be subject to this kind of punishment. Then going to the next example, again related to the army only. What is that? And the distant roar of enemy's cannon that inspires his army with fear. It's another question he raised. By the loud boom of a big drum, for neither the one nor the other would the distribution of a brilliant piece of uniform nor a reprimand to the regiment suffice. Another example he says that, for example, when both the armies are engaged for the fight, and you understand the cannons, they are creating such a big loud noise, what should be the reaction? The army which is really blowing this noise with their cannons, with that loud noise, the opposite army soldiers should really get terrified and run away. But then, to save this, they have utilized this homeopathic law of nature. What they used to beat very big drums, dum dum dum. It is almost a bigger noise than the noise of the cannon. They are not telling to the army that don't run away. They are talking to them, lecturing them, nothing. Neither they are giving them very beautiful uniforms, nothing like this. And not that they are giving any punishment for this. Rather, because of this very, very big, noisy drums, which is producing similar noise, just like the cannons are producing the noise. And in fact, the opposite army unable to hear those roaring cannons, and they get motivated to go into and engaging with the opposite army and fight. So he has given some two examples from the army side, and we can understand, seeing all those period serials like this Akbar or all those period serials, they have been using this. We can understand why, and you can appreciate that how those people were aware of this law of similia, and we all should appreciate Hahnemann to give us such very common, well-known examples. At least in his time, these were the well-known things. Now, the things are quite different, but then we are aware of, because of the spirit serials and movies and all, we are quite aware about all this kind of things. This uh, Rana Pratap, Maharana Pratap, and all these people. We have seen these period serials, and we have seen those wars, and we have seen that these gadgets were used. And what is the purpose? This is the purpose. We may be knowing. If we are not knowing, we are discussing now. Then comes another example. He's talking. Again, you see, he is giving another am dash, because suddenly he is changing his mind, giving some altogether different example he's going to give. Now, what is the example he's giving now? In like manner, mourning and sorrow will be effaced, means removed from the mind by the account of another and still greater cause for sorrow happening to another, even though it be a mere fiction. When you come to know, when you see, when you hear a bigger misery, a bigger sad story of the other person, I may be having a sad story and I am sad because of that. But suddenly, if you listen a bigger sad story of the other person, I find myself cured, because the bigger sad story has set aside the smaller sad story. So this can be very well utilized, means you can fiction it. Like for example, patient is coming to us and telling that how all this has happened and she became sad. And since then, this sadness, she is not well. Now, if you have some true story bigger than this, you can tell. Or you can manufacture a story and tell. That means he says fiction. A fictitious story telling to a patient, the purpose is to cure him, to make that person well, is not going to affect you on the moral basis, but then it is going to cure your patient. Then another example he's going to say, the injurious consequences of too great joy will be removed by drinking coffee, which produces an excessively joyous state of mind. So, suppose because of any reasons you're so happy, and rather too much overjoyed, unable to sleep under too much of excitement. This too much of excitement, too much of overjoy, even can harm the health. And here, a cup of coffee, a pinch of coffee, is going to really put you to the balance from this overjoy and of this overexcitement. So, this is the very good tip also for us to be utilized in case we are into such kind of situation or any of our patients are in such situations. Then another example he's giving, it's the last example I think. Nations like the Germans, who have for centuries been gradually sinking deeper and deeper in soulless apathy and degrading serfdom. Serfdom means when you are into slavery. Must first be trodden still deeper in the dust by the Western conqueror until their situation become intolerable. Their mean opinion of themselves was thereby overstrained and removed. They again became alive to their dignity as men, and then for the first time they raised their heads as Germans. So it is altogether history every one of us should know. It is not only the history of Germans, almost the history of the Indians. Let me just discuss this example first of the German. I would say you Google 16th century Germany and 17th century Germany and 18th century Germany. What was the state? We all know that German, which is a place in the Europe, and presently, if we see, the Germany has got this. Europe has got some 33, 35 countries, maybe smaller. Like if we say uh, Gurgaon, Ghaziabad, Karnal, Delhi. Here we have cities like this, and they have countries like this. So in this scenario, what was happening? These smaller countries, they were fighting with each other like anything, and for centuries they have fought like anything. As we are fighting in Asia, the similar situations this Europe has passed through in the history. In that, being German, Henman is talking about German, and after talking Germany, being myself as Indian, I would be discussing with you the same story with the Indians. Now, Henman says that for centuries, the Germany had saw a situation under the they were just like under the carpet because they lost war and this and that, so many things. You can just see the history. He says when you go and just mixed up with the dust, somebody come and rubbed you under the dust, going into that to the last extent situation, your psyche, make you again rise from there. Like Germany was passing through like this for centuries, and they accepted their misery, and they accepted, let us remain as slave. We practice slavery. I am going to be a slave all the time, and like this. And a situation came when this Napoleon Bonaparte of France came, and he really put the whole German in a very, very bad situation. The worst, the last brink came. There, the men and all the human beings of the German, all the Germans, They said, enough is enough, let us raise our head. And they came back and raised their head in such a way that they were able to achieve back their self esteem and became the proud German. And Germany has not passed through this situation once. I am talking something which is, this is something I am talking when it was of 17th and 18th century situation. Even if you see in the 20th century, Germany has passed through the situation like this. Like after the First World War, which took place somewhere in 1918 around, the whole world put the responsibility of all the losses of the First World War on Germany. And again, Germany went into that mental depression. It is the Hitler who came and raised back their head. Now, similar situation is of India. We have seen 15 centuries slavery. 15th century slavery. And it is now for certain years we were able to raise our head. You know the history, you are well aware about the history. So ultimately, if you really see these kind of psychological impact, when you are going up to the last brink of it, where that things are going to fall, from where the things fly back up. We know the story of Lord Krishna. If we try to understand that story in this context, he was the eighth son. And look at the situation of the mother. And we all believe that how intrauterine life influences the child. The mother was afraid that my brother Kans will come and kill my offspring. And at the eighth, you just understand what would be the state of the mother. She must have become fearless. That fearlessness produced a son, a complete fearless. So it is that situation when you take something to the last point, it just start going rising from there. So these are the certain examples, some 7 examples he talked on to understand the homeopathic law of nature. So 3 important things. First of all, Hahnemann explained in Aphorism 26 that whatever is being told in Aphorism 25, that this is how, on the basis of similia and the proper doses, the cure takes place. Now, why and how this depends on, he explains in 26, says that it is the homeopathic law of nature which is being followed, whether consciously or unconsciously. In last 2500 years, before Hahnemann came, it was unconsciously followed, suddenly, accidentally. Even then, cure took place. It is the Hahnemann which came and made it a conscious understanding of this law of homeopathic cure, that is homeopathic law of nature. And he made it a exclusive explanation in a statement written in the italics, says that a weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one if the later, while is different in kind, is very similar to the former in its manifestations. 3 things I told you: it must be similar, must be stronger, must be different in kind. What is going to happen? This kind of manifestation will remove the weaker manifestation, because that only the stronger one will exist. And he has given 7 examples. In the 7 examples, he talked about the Jupiter. Very simply, we can understand if we are well aware of it. Then he gave a few examples of the army. One example he gave about the olfactory nerve. Two examples of the army, that is the punishment of the soldier through the Gauntlet, and how when two armies are engaging in the war, how that effect of the roaring cannon they saved by the noise of big drums. And then he says further that about the sorrow, a bigger sorrow extinguish the smaller sorrow. This bigger sorrow of the German, if you take it to the last brink, even then it goes away. So, like this, he has explained some 7 examples here. He explained one very important and very, very close to the heart of every one of us, this homeopathic law of nature. Hellman is slowly and slowly going further to tell us about how this homeopathic law of nature is understood in the nature everywhere. Those who are even not aware, maybe it is not used for therapeutics, it is used for the army. It is a process, a automatic process happening around. You need an eye to see it. If your mind knows, your eyes can see this. So this is the whole explanation of this aphorism 26. I believe every one of you are quite clear about all this. If we see this in table of contents, what this table of contents is telling about this, let me read from the table of contents about aphorism 26. This is dependent on the therapeutic law of nature that a weaker dynamic fraction in the living organism is permanently extinguished by one that is very similar to and stronger than it, only differing from it in its kind. And in the note, that is regarding the footnote, says this applies both to physical affection and moral maladies. So this is, he talked about the uh, homeopathic law, therapeutic law, and in the uh, if we see, we find one on the footnote on the aphorism 26 regarding the appendix, and one of the sign of appendix is given in the footnote also of this. Let us see what is this appendix teaching us on aphorism 26. Now, if you see in the appendix, you will come to know that this aphorism 26, what we are reading now in 5th and 6th edition, this very aphorism was has gone into lot many of transformations right from the first aphorism. The corresponding aphorism in the first edition differs considerably from this. It runs like this. So you can see, you can read this. It was altogether different in the first edition, and in the first edition it was aphorism 20. Then this is followed by another aphorism that is omitted from other editions. So this is then followed in the first edition by another aphorism, but then in the subsequent aphorisms, it has been this paragraph which is shown as 21st aphorism in the first edition of the original is then removed from all the other editions. Then follows an aphorism which substantially resembles aphorism 40 of the 5th edition. So this aphorism 21 if when we are going to read aphorism 40, it is just similar to that. Then in the note also, aphorism 26 footnote, there is something on this appendix. What is it? To aphorism 26 note. In the second and third editions, these few words constitute an aphorism to which is attached a note from in like manner in this note to the end of this note. The fourth edition has the same arrangement as the fifth. So in aphorism 26 footnote, where this appendix mark is given, this portion in the previous editions, they were like proper aphorisms, which was later on changed and put under the footnote. So this is what the basic understanding we are getting regarding the aphorism 26. Then from 27 onwards, that means from tomorrow onwards, these aphorisms are going to teach something about the medicines, how medicines are more powerful, how medicines are to be called as stronger, and so many other things it is going to teach us. Now, it is not just only regarding the proving of the medicines, it is regarding the uh, power of medicines in context of the natural disease, and very much necessary to understand when you are applying the power of medicine to the power of diseases, and uh, understanding the power of medicine in context of the homeopathic law of nature. We are going to study in the further aphorisms. For now, we discussed this aphorism 26. Any one of you having any questions, I'm just looking forward for you to write me here, or you may write in the WhatsApp group, you may write in the comment section of this video. I hope this aphorism sometimes, because of its footnote, certain examples, it's really not taken well. But I think from now onwards, every one of you going to be very clear about the whole aphorism and the footnote of it. So, anybody, any questions? Looking forward. The most vital aphorism, because for the first time in the Ognon, we are getting a statement, we are getting a clear cut principle stated by Master Henman, which is nothing but a therapeutic law coming from the nature directly. And we are getting so many examples where this law of similia is used for many, many purposes. There are many, many laws of the nature which can be utilized for many other purposes. From the nature, Henman is utilizing this law for the purpose of therapeutics. This is the whole understanding of this aphorism and the examples. And Henman is going to elaborate further and further on this homeopathic law of nature. So, for today, thank you very much, everyone. And tomorrow, let us engage further for the next aphorism 27. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much.